Most commonly over the last 20 years, if I were to ask a family or a person with a disability what happens in public, they would say, people don't know what to do. They feel awkward, so they pull away
Hmm.
or they don't ask the question. And so, if you have someone in your life or you're around someone with a different ability, my challenge to you would be to lean in.
Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Follow Lead Podcast, a Christian leaders podcast powered by EBEB Solutions, energy benefits for every business. Go to ebebsolutions.com today and learn how you can save actual dollars in tax credits through energy savings. Again, ebebsolutions.com. Tell them Tony sent you. Friends, today on the podcast, I'm so excited for you to meet Laura Hope Whitaker. She is the CEO, Executive Director of Extra Special People. And we talk about what it means to lead when you're not ready. We talk about her story with Tom Holland, which was incredible. You got to hear it. And we talk about how we lean into awkward situations, just like Jesus leaned in. Such a good dialogue. She's led at such a high level with such an important part of our population, people with disabilities and special needs. And I think it's just a good conversation that most of us need to hear. So now here's a quick word from our partners and my conversation with Laura. Hey, everybody, welcome back to the podcast. I'm so excited today to have my new friend, Laura Hope Whitaker, on the podcast. Laura, thanks so much for taking the time.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
I'm really excited to jump into your story and all that God has done through you and the work that you do. But as I mentioned to you before we hit record this year, we're wrestling with the 12 most Googled leadership questions. And it's kind of one of those things that we're leaning into in efforts to try to help each other grow. And so let's say that you're sitting across from a young executive or entrepreneur who's building a team, maybe somebody who was in a situation like you, young and thrust into leadership. And they said, Laura, what's the best way to build trust and culture on our team? What are you going to tell them?
Oh, I would say buckle up. It takes a lot of time and a lot of intentionality. I haven't always done this well. It took me, taking over an organization when I was 19. I didn't know what I was doing. And I think now, 20 years later, I've recognized that it really happens one on one. And now that we have an organization that's scaled and we have a lot of leaders and multi layers, the real magic happens in the one on one relationships and making sure that every manager, every people leader within the organization understands the vision, is sold out for the values of the organization. A lot of businesses have values like up on their wall and they have them in their mission statement. For us at ESP, the way we built trust and culture is living out those values as leaders and then holding our people, coaching our people to hold out those values. And so I think that level of like authenticity and coaching has built this rhythm within our organization where there is an expectation to be coached and there's an expectation to be held to excellence within our values. And so that's kind of the way we've done it and the way we do it now. But I wish I would have known that about 20 years ago.
Well, that's the crazy part about your story is that you stepped into a role at 19 that most people would have run from, and you were left with essentially 4 sticky notes. Can you kind of give us the background on that story and what you did with those 4 notes?
Yeah, so you've read the book or portions of it, which is great. Yeah, so the organization ESP serves individuals with developmental disabilities. We were small at the time, serving a little over 40 individuals, and the founder was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. I was in college working for the organization and was given the opportunity to lead. And as I look at 19 and I've got a son who's 18 now, so it's
Right.
becoming very real to understand what this age is and what they understand about the world and what they understand about finances and what they don't understand about finances. And I think about all of the risk associated with a 19-year-old taking over a nonprofit. And then I contrast that to what I see in scripture. And I recognize that the Lord always uses the unexpected and untrained. And when I was given those 4 sticky notes, it was for, it was like the local police officer and the local print shop. And there were 4 board members that were, kind of had the fiduciary responsibility of the organization at the time. One, had lost a child tragically just a month prior. One was in jail for embezzlement of another
Oh, God.
nonprofit. And so I took the 2 of the 4 that was on that sticky note and I got to work,
Mm.
to me, I saw that those were 4 sticky notes that were 4 seeds that I could water, that then I could grow the sticky note pad to a full pad and eventually a full pack and eventually buy multiple packs. And so, I started there and prayed over that and then got to work talking about our very important mission and our very important people to anyone who would listen.
One of the interesting things about that struck me about Martha is her ability to see your anointing early. There's a story in the book about a letter that she wrote you after your first week, and one of the things about that is as a leader who's trying to bring up other leaders, that's something that I think is such a gift. And I'm curious, now that the organization has grown exponentially over your years, how are you still stewarding that part of the responsibility of leadership, of calling up the next generation? Because I imagine at your level, you don't often get to go to summer camp and work with freshmen.
Yeah, it's so funny because that is so relevant right now. We have 300 individuals on our payroll that are college students and high school
Wow.
students. And then, probably another 300 that are volunteering. And I think about that moment in my journey so often where to her it was probably such a quick moment that she forgot about where she essentially, gave me a letter and said, I'm promoting you and this is what I see in you and I believe you can do this. And I don't know what it was that she necessarily saw in me, but I think about that opportunity to, like, pass that baton over and what it felt like as an 18-year-old at the time when someone saw something in me and saw the abilities that I had, not what I didn't have or the lack of experience or the many skill sets that I don't have, but she saw what I did have and she called it out.
Hmm.
And so now, one of the things that I've really challenged and I'm not great at it, but I've really challenged myself like, okay, when I go in to summer camp and I'm surrounded by 75 college students, they don't really need me to perform. Like they don't need me to give them a word of wisdom. They don't need me to um hold them to a standard of excellence. They need me to look at them in the eyeballs and tell them what I see in them. And they are going to remember that for the rest of their life. And I think one of the challenges as leaders is we don't see ourselves as that significant. Like I don't walk around thinking, "Oh, something I say is going to change someone for the rest of their life." But by nature of my title,
Hmm.
anything I say is going to have 10 times the weight that their leader might have. And so it's an important responsibility that we have as leaders is to remember that our words really do matter. I mean, scripture talks about how important words are, right? And so now I'm trying to kind of sprinkle that, but don't always do a great job at it. But yeah, Martha was such a great example of that.
But it's such an interesting kind of like moment where, at the end of camp, she kind of tells all the freshmen, all the counselors that she's got, the way you
Yeah.
write it is beautiful. It's this emotional moment of like, hey, camp's over. We just poured our hearts out for this entire series. And now that like essentially the founder is saying, hey, this is probably going to be my last camp. And then I think a lot of leaders struggle with following the founder and things that I'm running into now with coaching all the time is like the next generation. How did you, as a 19-year-old, which is still just blowing my mind every time I think about it, how did you balance the tension of I'm going to honor this incredible leader who started with this vision and also recognize that all of the systems that she had in place were no longer transferable to you because they weren't built for a system. They were built on sticky notes, right? Like you basically had to
Right.
rebuild the whole thing in order for it to grow and expand. And I can't imagine the internal tension or the board tension or just the perception of all of that. How did you wrestle with following the founder?
Yeah, it's interesting because now I am passing it on to other executive directors, right? And each executive director has their own flavor. And um, what I was a part of building and the Lord built now is run by a different leader. And so I've had kind of both of those sides where you had Martha, who was the founder. I kind of took the helm of that. And as you said, was left, I was left with nothing. There was no donor database. There was no camper software. There wasn't anything like that. And had to build all of those processes. I think, you know, f- one of the best things I knew then that I hope that I continue to know as I age and grow and as the organization grows is that I really didn't know anything at 19.
Mm,
And that was kind of like humility. And I write about this in the book was really like my secret sauce because I didn't pretend like I knew what to do. I garnered a lot of mentorship and people circled people around me that knew better. And so I think I was able to kind of say, look what Martha built. We're so thankful for the years that she gave, the 19 years, to create this culture and this place that everyone loves and adores. And if we're going to move to the future, this is the season that this is what it's going to look like now. And I've often like related to like the different iPhones because I think it's so relatable. It's like, the first iPhone, if we were still operating with the first iPhone, we'd be missing out on a lot. But the
mm.
world has evolved as the iPhone has evolved. And the iPhone has evolved the way that the world has evolved. And so, similarly, our organization has to evolve. And so, 10 years from now, when I'm no longer with the organization, I hope it looks different.
Yeah.
Like, I hope that the organization I hope it's evolved to the next version of itself, matching what the world needs at that time. And so I think that humility it's a tightrope because we are by nature very prideful people. And my successor at the original location, he does things different than I would. But it was so important when we made the transition from me to him that it was very visible and very vocal that I supported him and believed in him. And we were together for a long time before we separated because I wanted him to be honored and loved and adored. And I think that's probably what's missing in a lot of succession plans is that transition period. It's like when you're both holding the baton and people see and can feel and can experience you together and they can train under you and then passing the gavel over after that.
Well, one of the things that I appreciate is the way that you've kind of taken your role as kind of the chief visionary for this organization into the world and the writing and the TEDx talk and all of the different things that you've done. I'm curious, and this is going to be a two-part question. The first part is, what's your job description today? And the second one is, how did you know along the journey when it was time to change it?
Oh, such a good question. And that one I normally get to talk about. So in 2020, we figured out this was really the catalyst of our growth. So we had to be in 6 different locations at one time because of COVID. The governor is a big supporter of our organization and allowed us to stay open. And so we figured out how to process and procedure summer camp in 6 different locations. And for years and years up until that point, we had, special needs families that were like, please bring ESP to our community. And we're like, no, not yet, not yet. Well, I kinda turned around midsummer and said, "Oh my gosh, we just figured this out." Like, we figured out how to duplicate ourselves. And so, it was a crazy year. I mean, just wild. And towards the end of the summer, one of my good friends handed me a book called Rocket Fuel.
I love
And,
Rocket Fuel. It's a great book.
okay.
Yeah, love it.
So, yes, if you're listening, it's a great book, and it really is built for people like me who are visionaries, who are entrepreneurs. We build things, and it gets to a place where really our gifting is not to operate it. And so you need a partner, you need an integrator. And so she handed me that book and she said, before you go on sabbatical, which we implemented a 5-year sabbatical policy so that after 5 years, you get an additional 3 weeks of PTO and get to do something that's going to help love on you or minister to you during that time to make you better when you come back. And so 2020, I was supposed to take my sabbatical. I read that book before I went on my sabbatical, and then I went on sabbatical. I was alone by myself, which I haven't done because I was one of 4 kids in college, took over a nonprofit, got married, started having my own children, and so being alone was terrifying to me.
Mm,
Um, and the Lord just reinvented me during that time. I mean, from
wow.
extreme anxiety and panic attacks to this season of renewal. And that's really when I knew rocket fuel paired with my sabbatical. It was the Lord was like, okay, Laura, ESP is um, really hard to describe and very easy to see. And people need to know how to put into words what the organ, if it's going to continue to grow and we're going to continue to serve people with disabilities, you got to figure out a way to communicate the mission outside of the cities that you're in. And so, that was scary. I never wanted to write a book. I mean, that wasn't in the plan for me and, public speaking and podcasting and things like that. But it was like, no, this is kind of the time. And also, you're not a great operator. So, like, get out of the way of the organization, go do what you do best, and innovate, grow, raise funds, speak, and let someone else be a part of the operations side. So that's really what I do.
I think it's such a beautiful self-awareness tool for a lot of leaders to say, hey, that I might be the ceiling to the organization. Um, I also know that when you work at a nonprofit, you have a board, and that board oftentimes isn't as forward thinking as the visionary. And so I'm curious
Totally.
how you walked into that room of your board and say, hey guys, I'm going to get out of operations completely and just be the visionary. And I want you guys to be okay with it.
Yeah, it was a bit of an evolution. It started just like, okay, we want to build this operating system within the organization so we have common language and we're operating. And then it grew from there. I had a lot of my board members read the book because I think they also didn't know what to do with me. It's like
Mm,
I think they felt like, how do we build a succession plan? How will ESP continue without Laura? And we don't even want to think about that, and I was challenging them like, we need to think about that. And also here are all the areas I'm not great in. And so that book was kind of gave language to the fact that it's not Laura. It's there's a lot of these humans out in the world who have an entrepreneurial mindset that are great at growing things. And this is the solution with what to do with them and what to do with the rest of the company. And so I think that was really helpful. And then the other piece is, I do a lot of the fundraising. And so it's one of the parts I love and adore because I get to watch people who have built things themselves or have inherited a certain level of wealth, and they, come thinking that they're giving to ESP, and all the while they get exchanged with this gift of purpose and an investment in something that makes a difference. And so my job is speaking and being the visionary, growing, innovating, but it's also fundraising. And so I think it made it a little easier for the board to say, like,
sure.
okay, she's still doing something that's really important for the organization, but this is the lane we're going to keep her in and maximize her time in those spaces.
While we're talking about fundraising, I would be remiss if I didn't ask you to tell the Nikki story because it's so good.
Oh my gosh. Yes. So several years ago, I received a phone call from a woman who said that she was wanting to give some money away here in the US. And she eventually got around to sharing that she was Tom Holland's mom. And I did not know who Tom Holland was. I went to
Just to be
dinner
clear,
that
that's
night with my
Spider-Man,
kids.
guys.
Spider
Spider-Man.
Man. And so I went to dinner with my kids, and I told them, like, how was your day? And I told them, yeah, this wonderful woman wants to sponsor Java Joy, which is our social enterprise that employs adults with disabilities. And it's an actor's mom, and his name is Tom Holland. I don't know who he is. And I think my son was 13 at the time. And he goes, Mom, that is Spider-Man. How do you not know? And my daughter's like, that is Zendaya's boyfriend, Mom. And I'm like, oh my gosh. So anyway, long story short, we built a relationship with the Holland family, and the Brothers Trust is the organization that supports ours and many. And they invited us a couple years ago, 2 years ago, to London. And so we went and we brought two of our joyristas. So barista plus joy equals a joyrista.
I love it, by
Um,
the way. I want to talk about
we
social enterprise next. So
it's so amazing, and there's so many stories around that and how we got around to that name. But um, we employ a little over 80 adults with disabilities through Java Joy, and we wanted to take two. And Nikki and Liz were two of the joyristas that the Brothers Trust, Tom's foundation, supported. So we decided to bring Nikki and Liz. So we fly to London and we do all of the London things as tourists, and we go to this gala with the Brothers Trust, and we're dressed to the nines. I mean, it's like what you would imagine Tom Holland's gala being, and there's the who's who and philanthropists from all over the world, not just the country but like the world, and his team there from Marvel and all of that. And I'm thinking to myself, how is a 6'4" African American man with cornrows with autism and a 4'10" ginger with Down syndrome going to fit into this crowd? Like, what is this going to look like? And so we walk in, and champagne is being passed, and Tom walks up immediately, and it's like, oh my gosh, we've been waiting for you, and begins to introduce us to his guests and all of that. So it was a posh pub quiz, and the short version of it is you have all of these tables sitting around after the champagne toast and everything, and Tom is up there on stage, and they would play a song from a pianist, and you would have to guess the song and write it down. And it was a quiz, and everyone was competing. Each table was competing. So about midway through, it's a bit stuffy in there. You can imagine everyone's in tuxedos and gowns,
sure,
and they're doing
everybody's a little nervous.
everyone's a little nervous around these celebrities and everything. And so I'm thinking to myself, like, this is going to be interesting, because at ESP we do music a little different. We're just a little more authentic, a little less polished. And so midway through the event, everyone is sitting down. Tom's on stage, and "My Heart Will Go On" by Celine Dion comes on, and this is Nikki's favorite song of all time. And so he looks at me, and I look at him, and he looks at me like permission to go up on stage. And I'm like, I kind of shrug my shoulders, and I'm like, sure, why not? I don't
Send
know
it.
what's about to happen. So our amazing human, our joyrista Nikki, who is tall, African American with autism, and just an amazing human. And you can actually watch the Instagram reel through the book, the QR code in the book. But he gets up and he walks on stage, and impromptu, him and Tom Holland do the full Titanic rendition on stage. Everyone stands up. I mean, they go wild. Their shoulders loosen. Their smiles get bigger. There's a longer line after to meet Nikki than there was Tom Holland. It changed the atmosphere. I mean, the atmosphere completely changed after that moment. And it's one of my favorite stories about joy and what happens when we are authentically ourselves and
Yeah.
allow ourselves to authentically lean into the awkwardness and be human. And Nikki, he changed the night because he was himself.
I think that's one of the gifts that you bring to this conversation around adults and children with disability that a lot of people don't, is just the gift in it. And your social enterprise is a perfect example of that. And I think it was in your TED talk that you talked about the idea of like going into factories with the joyristas. And what I'm curious is, one, if you could kind of fill everybody in on how that happened, and two, how that ended up becoming such an important part for the factory as much as it was for you guys?
Yeah, so Java Joy, the model of it is we're a catering model. So you hire Java Joy, we'll go with 3 or 4 Joyristas and one of our team members into your place of business. And this part's really important because there's a lot of amazing businesses out there run by people with disabilities. And a lot of them you have to choose to go there, right? Like Starbucks or this place. So you probably have already crossed the bridge or are familiar with people with disabilities. Our kind of model is different than that and supportive of that, but different in that we're going to go to a place that's already comfortable for you. So your workplace or your church or your school or whatever that is, we're going to go to a place that's comfortable for you. And then we're going to engage. And so the factories that you're talking about, it's one thing to serve Java Joy at a chamber of commerce. It's another thing to go into a manufacturing plant where you have people that are coming in for their shift at 4 a.m., that are working an hourly job, that are feeding their families on very, very little. It's just a different demographic of people. And so when we first started Java Joy, I was thinking to myself, like, is this going to work everywhere?
Hmm.
Or is this just for the businesses that love to quote network? And so we go to this large manufacturing plant and we get there early and I watch people kind of walk by the cart. And one important thing to note is we have really good coffee. And so the first shift break happens and I see people start coming over that have walked by that were kind of side eyeing us in the very beginning and they really wanted their coffee. And so they get their coffee. They're asked the question of the day, which, ranges from what's your favorite superhero to what's your favorite dish at Thanksgiving. And then they get a hug from an adult with a disability, whether they have cerebral palsy or Down syndrome. And you watch exactly what happened in London with Nikki. You watch that happen in a micro exchange over and over and over again. You watch these big, burly men working in a factory loosen their shoulders, smile. And it's the physical touch, which I talk
Mm.
about in the book, is so important. It's proximity, which by the way, I mean, when you look at Jesus, you see him always touching people.
Yeah.
And we as a society are awkward when it comes to proximity with people, but the only way to really connect is to draw close. And so Java Joy does that. And then you watch people smiling and they would come back for every shift break to get Java Joy, just smiling as they walk up. And so I think, what it does, and by the way, that one manufacturing company, we did a survey, their company did a survey right after that. And these people had worked for the company for 18 to 20 years, and they said it was their favorite day of work that they had ever had was the day Java Joy came. And I think that's what Java Joy does is it kind of breaks down these barriers or silos or walls or whatever and really brings in the human in all of us. And
Mm.
people will begin to share, like, yeah, my daughter has autism or my nephew has Down syndrome. And I've never really been able to share that here at the workplace before. But I love my job now, or I love my company, or I respect my company so much more because they valued bringing Java Joy in. So it's good for the business, which I think is excellent. It should be, but it's also employing adults with disabilities, which I think is a pretty cool mix.
I appreciate the way that you have kind of taken on this identity, at 19, and you're still really the face of the organization. I'm always curious because I think there are a lot of entrepreneurs who are listening who wrestle with the balance of marriage and kids in the midst of being in charge of something that can take up every minute of your life. And so, from my research, you didn't meet Joseph till a little bit later. Like you were already, so he didn't just marry you, he also married ESP in a sense. How do you guys work through that? How do you create good balances? What can we steal from you in terms of like, how do we protect our marriages from righteous mission desire to growth?
So important, especially if you're leading a church or a mission, or like you said, you're an entrepreneur, because entrepreneurs never turn off.
Right.
Never. I mean, the number of things that go through my head in 1 minute in comparison to most people, I have learned over the years, I thought everyone thought like me. And I've realized, oh my gosh, like, and so the other side of that is the people who live with us
Mhm.
and the people who have to interact with us every day. And so I mean, I think 2 things. One, I remember being mentored very early on about, um, who I am at home versus who I am outside of the home, and to pay attention to, there's absolutely grace on being able to relax and be frustrated or be angry at home and try on some of those emotions at home, but I never want my children or my husband to think I love ESP more than I love them.
Hmm.
And so, when I did all the joy research, it was fascinating because, um, joy is just simply delighting in the person in front of you.
Yeah.
And you do that through your eyes and through your smile and through your body language more than even what you say. And so I think sometimes when we're out, it's easy to do that. When we're in, and I come home from work or Joseph comes home or the kids, we kind of throw that out. And so, making eye contact, being warm, you need 8 hugs a day, giving hugs. I think those are making sure joy is prevalent in my home, I think is one thing. The other is, after I went on sabbatical, I learned the practice of Sabbath.
Hmm.
And I think, like, maybe a lot of people in ministry do this well outside of in the secular world. We don't understand Sabbath, especially if
Nobody
we're an
in ministry does
entrepreneur.
Sabbath well.
Okay, okay, well, I'm just giving them the benefit of the doubt.
It's nice of you to
It
think that, but they all
eh
struggle with it.
okay, well, there you go. So, yeah, I think, like, I thought at first, like, "Oh my gosh, how in the world am I gonna get my kids to turn off the TV for a day?" Or, and for us, we kind of ramped up to Sabbath, but we do Sabbath every Sunday, and we go to church, and we serve in a different way, and we worship. We turn everything off, like, all phones go in one room, the TV doesn't turn on. That has been single-handedly the thing that has saved my marriage and my family.
Hmm.
Um, I mean, I remember when we started, my son was 14 at the time, and he started picking up the guitar and started playing because he wasn't entertained. My kids started playing basketball together. Um, we started, family game nights, which we now love. We started walking. I don't cook dinner. I don't do any laundry. All of it sits. All of it, I'm like, it can come tomorrow. My husband and I always spend time together. There's just like these things that we do. And I've noticed in my kids, and now my team will ask me, like, or will say in a funny way, like, I can tell you Sabbath yesterday. And I'm like, yep. Or did you have a busy day, Sunday yesterday? Which is cue for you didn't Sabbath yesterday. And I think, like, it's just been it has been revolutionary in our family. And now with the slaves that we all are to the cell phone, and watching my 18-year-old get a cell phone in 8th grade and watching that challenge, I think it's just so important that we as leaders are able to put it down and model that, and then really challenge and believe in our children that they can do that too. They need to know that they can live without it, but they may need to be shown that they can. And so that's been a game changer for us.
One of the questions that I wanted to ask you is, it's personal for me. I have a nephew who's got a disability, and I'm watching my brother-in-law and my sister-in-law kind of go through that, and I oftentimes feel. I mean, Sam's wonderful. He's easy, right? Like, Sam is great, like, no problem there. I oftentimes feel helpless on how to support them well. And I would imagine that in your line of work, you have seen this over and over again. So do me a favor and talk to me and anyone else who might be ESP adjacent, and how
Sure.
we can support and love our ESP families and family well.
I love that question. And I have seen it. I mean, right now we have 175 campers at overnight camp. And I looked at every single family in the face on Sunday, and I did not Sabbath on Sunday. On Sunday, because I was working at camp drop off. Um, And all of them said, this is the only week we get rest.
Hmm.
Or this is the first time. And I look at the dad, and if they are still married, because divorce rate is statistically much higher, um, and I'll say, "We'll take care of your kid. You have to take her on a date night," and the mom gets all giddy, and it's like, "I don't remember the last time we've been on a date." And so I would say, there's a lot of different ways that you can support someone that you love that has a child with a disability. But I think respite, I have seen, is one of the biggest needs of families.
Hmm.
And whether that is a date night, and they're probably not going to ask you because they don't want to burden anyone else. They don't want to, seem like they need help or support. But I think there's some really fun ways to do it. Like, if it were me, and I sometimes do this, I say, like, what's your nephew's name?
Samuel.
Samuel. Okay. So, like, my kids really need to hang out with Samuel,
Hmm.
and, like, not with you there. Like, my kids need to be around Samuel because I think that he has amazing gifts and abilities that the Lord has given him that they need to learn. And so I would love if Samuel could come over for a few hours. And even better if you two go on a date, but you decide what you're going to do with your own time.
Hmm.
But we need Samuel to come over for a little bit to our house. Um, and I think that level of that's true, right? At least what I believe to be true is your
Sure.
kids need
Sure. Yeah.
Samuel, right?
Absolutely.
But also it builds a rhythm where parents who have children with disabilities often feel like A, they don't want to be a burden, and B, no one can care for my child in the way that I do.
Hmm.
And so I think it exercises the muscle of allowing families the opportunity to see their child be away from them, and it's okay. And their child is able to be with their cousins or able to be with friends or neighbors in a way that that's important for their child too. And then, I always talk about, like, um, if you're ESP adjacent or disability adjacent and you're at the grocery store or the Mexican restaurant or wherever you are living life in your community, and you have proximity to someone with a disability. Most commonly over the last 20 years, if I were to ask a family or a person with a disability what happens in public, they would say, people don't know what to do. They feel awkward, so they pull away
Hmm.
or they don't ask the question. And so, if you have someone in your life or you're around someone with a different ability, my challenge to you would be to lean in. And there is awkwardness in a lot of different situations, but I always say, like, aha is on the other side of awkwardness. It's
Hmm.
in the proximity. It's in the leaning in. It's in the John 9 where Jesus heals the man who was born blind. It's like Jesus was the master at leaning in
Yeah.
instead of pulling away. And so I think that's the number. Don't You're not going to do it perfectly. You're not going to say the perfect thing, but it'd be better to say something than nothing at all.
So good. I love all of that. Thank you so much. Okay, I have one more question for you, but before I do, I know the bold ones, my community here, they're going to want to figure out where they can pick up a copy of your book and learn more about all that God's doing through your work. Where's the best place to learn all things Laura?
Yeah, so the best place, I mean, it's sold on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, all of the different places. But if you head on over to laurahopewhitaker.com, that's the best place to go. It can link you to our organization, ESP. It can link you to our social enterprise, Joy. And then you can also get the book, and there's some other resources on there as well.
And let me just say this, if you go to our website, you do need to read about the Joy Parade. I had a whole list of questions about the Joy Parade that we're just not going to get to because I want to respect your time, but like it's good stuff. So it's really good stuff. Check it out and pick up a copy of the book. Okay, last question we're asking people this year is about leadership, and it's specifically having you introduce your favorite leader that you've ever done life with to our audience here. So who is when I think about the best leader, when you think about the best leader that you've ever met, who comes to mind and why do we need to know him or her?
All right, so I'm going to talk about him before I tell you who he is.
Love it.
But this individual is someone unexpected, someone without a leadership title, someone that's kind of second in command. but one that I have learned the most from over the last 20 years. Um, this person I have learned humility from
Hmm.
um, on a regular basis. He responds with kindness, um, humility, is always thinking about what's in the best interest of the people that are around him. Is a very hard worker and disciplined. Um, is not a self promoter, needs to be promoted, and is an incredible h- son. Lost his dad to cancer and walked through his family with that, and remains kind of the head of the household now. And this person I've been married to for December 20 years.
Wow.
My husband, Joseph Whitaker. So very different strengths. Him and I are on opposite ends of the pendulum, but while it might sound cliche, I think we as leaders love to idolize people who are like us and are successful.
Hmm.
And I think I have learned from him, he's completely opposite of me, balances me out, but I have worked and challenged myself and will until the day I die to be more like him. And I think he allows me to be more like Jesus. I see a lot of Jesus in him. And he's not perfect. He frustrates me every single day. But his level of humility will forever be something that I admire in the way that he leads the people around him. In the book, I call him hashtag love like Joseph. And literally everywhere I go, he has this calm, beautiful demeanor, and people are just drawn. Everyone likes him. He doesn't have one person in the world that doesn't love him, who meets him. So he's the leader I want to be like, and the one I've learned the most from.
That's so good. Amen. Laura, thank you so much for being so generous with your time today. Thank you for the work that you put out into the world. And I would love to have you back on as you continue to spread the ESP mission, maybe a next book or anything that we can do to support you, please.
I haven't said this publicly anywhere, but there is another one in the works. So it's
Hey, I
exciting.
love it. Can you drop it? Do you know the title yet? Are you allowed to tell us the
I
title?
don't.
Okay. All right.
The publisher and I haven't decided on that yet, but we'll
All
get
right.
there.
All right. Well, I look forward to having you back on to talk about that.
Thanks.
I told you guys what a great conversation with Laura. I loved the way she talked about calling up the next generation of leaders, about how Martha did that for her. I love the way that she kind of leaned into the idea of communication and how important that is. And the way she talked about her husband was, it was really inspiring. So that's the good stuff. The coaching question I have for you today is a simple one, but not an easy one. And it's this: where do you need to lean in? Where do you need to lean in? What spaces or places are you taking a step back when really it's time to lean in? As always, I'm forever thankful for you, the bold ones. So until next time, remember, if you want to follow Jesus, you must be willing to move.